Welcome to Pet Video Libraries, caring for your green iguana. In this video, we'll assume this is your first iguana, or that it's been a while since you've invited a new iguana into your home. We'll show you everything you'll need to know about raising and caring for a healthy, happy iguana. So, it's a good idea to have a pen and paper handy as you follow along, so you can write down some of these helpful tips. The green iguana is one of the most popular of the reptile pets in North America and around the world. They're beautiful, fascinating, and educational creatures that can make wonderful companion pets, provided you're prepared for the time, care, and commitment required to have one. They're not for everyone. Not only can they grow to up to 6 feet in length, they can live for up to 20 years. So follow along while we guide you through the ins and outs of living with and caring for your green iguana. Iguanas have very special needs, and they will be entirely dependent upon you for their care. Before reaching a decision about whether to have an iguana or not, you should ask yourself some crucial questions. First of all, is it legal to own iguanas where you live? Some states, apartments, condos, and townhomes don't even permit them. Do you have the space to keep a large caged enclosure for a lizard that can grow to be 6 feet in length? Will you have the time to spend every day caring for, taming, training, cleaning after, and giving affection to your iguana? Will you be comfortable handling and at times restraining a large reptile that may become seasonally aggressive? If you have young children at home, will you be able to adequately protect them and the iguana from each other? Are you willing to invest the time to learn all you can about raising iguanas before you get one? If you answered no to 2 or more of these questions, then it's probably not a good idea for you to have an iguana. On the other hand, if you can give these questions a lot of thought and still feel confident about the responsibilities involved with sharing several years of your life with an iguana, you will have a long and rewarding relationship with a fascinating and possibly even affectionate animal. Okay, so you're committed to getting an iguana and have considered how large they can grow. You're now going to have to determine where to keep one. Like most reptiles, iguanas are entirely dependent upon the habitat they're raised in for a number of things that cats, dogs, or even fish can get from other sources. For example, iguanas need certain wavelengths of light to aid in their metabolism, body chemistry, and to process calcium in order not to get degenerative bone disease, which can kill them. Being cold-blooded creatures, they also require heat from their habitat, along with lots of humidity. This means that you're going to have to create an environment for your iguana that will supply these vital elements in order for them to remain healthy and happy. You will need to understand exactly what your iguana's basic survival needs are before proceeding to set up an environment for it to live in. Let's start with the size of the enclosure. It's a complete myth that iguanas will only grow as large as the cage they're kept in, so you will need to plan accordingly. A 20-gallon aquarium or terrarium is perfectly adequate for young hatchlings, but they grow very quickly and will soon require a much larger living space. After 1 year of age, your iguana should be moved to a large enough enclosure to house it for years to come. This means having a cage big enough to comfortably let your iguana grow to several feet in length. The bottom of the enclosure should have a waterproof, easy-to-clean surface. The surface should be covered with a reptile-friendly substrate found at your local pet supply store. Avoid using particular substrates such as gravel, sand, crushed shell, corn cob bedding, or other materials that could be ingested by the iguana. You can also add some rocks and branches for climbing. Be sure to add an accessible shelf high up in the enclosure for basking on. A water receptacle should be placed where it's accessible from this shelf too, so that your iguana can drink from it to regulate its body temperature. You can also put another one in the enclosure, or you can remove your iguana for daily swims and hydration. Make sure there's a secured lid or door as well. One thing that you don't want to add to an iguana's environment are commercially available hot rocks. These products can be unsafe for your iguana and result in serious burns. Avoid them altogether. Since iguanas naturally gain their heat sources from the sun rather than on their undersides, it is not recommended to use these heat rocks. Let's start off with a heat source to keep your iguana warm. We mentioned earlier to stay away from hot rocks. In the wild, iguanas spend much of their time sunning themselves in the canopies of trees. They've adapted to life as heliotherms, which means that they bask in warm air rather than on warm surfaces like other reptiles. That is why it's recommended to provide a heat source for them from above rather than below. Iguanas' enclosures need to be kept warm. The daytime ambient temperature inside the cage should not get lower than 80 degrees Fahrenheit. The basking shelf near the top of the cage should also be near a heat source. This area should be kept at between 90 to 95 degrees. You should install some thermometers in different areas around the enclosure to keep check on the varying temperatures in it. Maintaining the proper temperatures is extremely important to your iguana's well-being. A good quality incandescent lamp is suitable for a heat source. Its size and wattage should be determined by the prevailing room temperature outside of the cage. Bulbs over 150 watts should have a ceramic socket to prevent overheating. Of course, the fixtures should be in a location, preferably outside the cage, where your iguana cannot climb on or touch them. Iguanas have day and night cycles like all other animals. They're diurnal creatures, which means they stay awake during daylight hours. The timers on the lights should be set to turn off for 12 to 13 hours every night. Not doing this will disrupt the regulation of your iguana's behavior, which can cause stress, behavioral aggression, and health problems. When the lights are off, you'll still need to keep the ambient temperature inside the cage between 75 to 78 degrees. You'll still need to provide a source of heat for your iguana. One of the best ways to do this is with a ceramic heat emitter. Now, there's one other source of light that your iguana requires that's also very important, and that is UV, or ultraviolet radiation. Within the UV spectrum, there are two UV light frequencies that are required by your iguana. They are UVA and UVB light. UVA is the visible light that's emitted from the sun and light bulbs. It plays a crucial role in your iguana's behavior by telling it when it's daytime and inducing appetite and other behavioral functions. Now, UVB light is the more difficult frequency of light to provide and control. Iguanas need UVB light to properly synthesize vitamin D. There are quite a few types of UVB lamps, but not all of them are suitable for your iguana's needs. This is where you'll need to do some careful additional research to determine what type of UVB light is best suited for the type of environment and enclosure you've created for your reptile. You cannot place glass or plastic in front of them because UVB radiation cannot penetrate through any obstructions, even clear ones. In addition to requiring high temperatures, iguanas also require high humidity, which should be maintained between 65 and 75%. You will need to mount a humidity gauge in the enclosure to monitor it properly. There are many ways to achieve adequate humidity levels, either through periodically spritzing your iguana with water throughout the day, placing tubs of water in or near the enclosure, or using a humidifier. However, all of these solutions have inherent problems. For one thing, you will want to avoid too much humidity, which can create mildew and fungus growth both on the enclosure and on your iguana. You will also have to compensate for lack of evaporation when the lights turn off at night. By far, the best solution to providing proper humidity levels on a 24-hour cycle is to invest in a misting system or an ultrasonic fogger. The one drawback to these systems is that they're expensive. However, if used properly, their timers can be set to maintain the proper amount of humidity to keep your iguana's environment ideal for its health and well-being. You can find these systems at most herpetological supply stores. Iguanas are herbivores, which is what animal vegetarians are called. More specifically, iguanas are folivores. This means that they primarily consume leaves in their natural habitat. They do not eat, nor should they be fed, any sort of animal protein, nor should they be fed anything sweeter than fruits. Iguanas also require lots of calcium in their diets. This can be derived from dark green leafy vegetables. You can also occasionally feed them some commercial canned or dried iguana food, but it should be mixed with fresh vegetables. It's also a good idea to spray their vegetables with water so that they're nice and wet when eaten. In fact, the more you can get your iguana to drink, the better it will be for them. The best time to feed your iguana is in the morning, about half an hour after they wake up. Give them time to bask and get their body temperature up first. They need the extra warmth to digest food properly. Don't give them a large meal late in the evening because they can't digest it as well when the lights are out and it's cooled down. You can also feed them as many times a day as they're willing to eat. After you've spent some time with your little green friend, you'll get a good idea about how much they'll consume in a sitting. Variety is the key to a healthy diet for your iguana. Over time, you'll be able to discern which veggies are your iguana's favorites, and you can see that it gets those more often. Just be sure to chop them up or use a large hold grater to shred the vegetables before serving them. Okay, so now you know that iguanas are vegetarians that require a varied diet of mostly dark leafy greens, along with other veggies and some fruits. Be sure to tear or cut them into small pieces when serving them. Here's a starter list of vegetables that provide the most nutritional needs for your iguana. And the iguana should be fed this 80 to 90% of the time. Of this percentage, half should be greens, and the other half should consist of various other vegetables. The most popular foods include collard greens, mustard greens, and dandelion greens. You can also feed your iguana any kind of lettuce, but do so only in moderation. Lettuce has very little nutritional value. Next are the vegetables. Vegetables should be chopped or grated and served along with the greens to make up the other half of the diet. Asparagus, onions, mushrooms, bell peppers, sweet potatoes, zucchini, and carrots are among their favorites. Sliced and chopped fruits can also be served and should only make up about 10% of your iguana's diet. These can include bananas, apples, grapes, strawberries, raspberries, and blackberries. Occasionally, it's also all right to give your iguana some grain-based foods. Lastly, there are some vegetables that should only be fed occasionally and in moderation. These foods include spinach and celery, kale, broccoli, cabbage, and cauliflower. There are several different kinds of commercial iguana foods on the market. It's not a good idea to solely rely upon them for your iguana's diet. Commercial foods are high in protein. They may be a good source of protein for your iguana when made part of an overall diet regimen. Even a healthy diet comprised of lots of veggies and fruits won't always supply all of your iguana's complete nutritional needs. That's why it's highly recommended that you supplement your iguana's food with vitamins. There are quite a few varieties of commercial reptile vitamins and supplements available, but most of them are not suitable for iguanas. Just be sure to check with your local reptile expert for ones that are recommended for your age of iguana. It's also a good idea to add supplements each time you serve thawed frozen veggies, because freezing depletes some of their vitamin content. Some iguanas can become picky eaters. This can be unhealthy for them because they need a varied diet. The best way to overcome this problem is by chopping or grating their food and mixing it up. That way, they're less likely to be able to pick and choose. Sometimes, an iguana accidentally bites the hand that feeds it. This can be especially serious with large iguanas because they have very sharp teeth. So pay attention to their behavior and be very careful. Iguanas are not domesticated animals. They're wild creatures with natural instincts that you'll have to learn to interpret, respond to, and tame. A juvenile hatchling is initially going to view you as a predator and act defensively or try to flee from you. They also become easily stressed, so you're going to have to be very careful and patient while taming them. Fortunately, iguanas are intelligent creatures with distinct personalities, and they can recognize familiar people. Most iguanas can be tamed and socialized. They'll interact with their owners, sometimes affectionately, while forming strong bonds. They have sharp, serrated teeth to bite with, as well as sharp claws that can really scratch. They'll also use their tail as a weapon by forcefully whipping it, which can sting. Their tails detach easily too, like other lizards, as an escape or defense mechanism. Other signs of aggression include flaring out the dewlap, which is the loose skin under their chin, holding their mouth open, hissing, and their head turning white. Assuming you've prepared for the arrival of your new iguana with an environmentally controlled habitat, and it's in a quiet environment where the iguana won't be disturbed, then you are going to have to give your new friend some time to adjust to its new surroundings on its own. Patience is the operative word from this point forward. Most iguanas can take anywhere from 3 months to a full year before they'll comfortably let you handle them and become tamed. So you're going to have to brace yourself for some trials and tribulations. Your iguana will first require lots of time to get used to its new home and feel safe. That means, for the time being, you'll need to limit your contact with it to just feeding it and cleaning its enclosure. Don't attempt to pick it up or handle the iguana for a few weeks. Keep pets and other people away from it too. You want your iguana to begin associating your presence with food and a comfortable environment. Little by little, start spending more time near it. When talking to your iguana, you should be doing so in a calm, normal voice. Your movements should be relaxed too. Observe how your iguana watches you. If it seems stressed, back off. You want it to get used to your presence and begin building trust. The next step you should take is placing your hands in the enclosure away from the iguana so that it begins to get used to seeing them. Each time you do this, move them a little closer to the iguana and leave them in the cage for longer periods of time. Your iguana will gradually get used to your hands and your presence. It should start to realize that you aren't an immediate threat to it. You can also slowly try touching and then petting it. Once you've accomplished this process, you can move on to handling your iguana for the purpose of taming it. Now that you've given your iguana a chance to get acclimated to its new home, you're going to want to get it used to being picked up and handled. Up to this point, your iguana knows that you bring it food and you keep its enclosure clean, but it hasn't formed a bond with you yet. Building this bond will be your next objective. When it comes to picking up and handling your iguana, you need to be gentle but firm. Approach it slowly, stroke its head and dewlap. Then carefully pick the iguana up and hold it firmly enough so that it doesn't squirm out of your grasp. Use 2 hands, one under the iguana's chest and then the other hand to support the tail. Be careful of its claws if they're tightly holding on to something. You don't want to hurt them. Use your fingers to carefully pry the claws from whatever they're clinging onto. For the time being, you're just going to start out by holding your iguana while it remains inside its enclosure. Don't take it out of the cage the first few times that you do this. You're just trying to build up trust before removing it from the security of its habitat. A healthy young iguana will naturally squirm and thrash about when you pick it up. If it does this when you finally take it out of the cage, place the iguana firmly against your chest and keep its head away from your neck. Hold it there until it stops fidgeting for as long as it takes. Once the iguana calms down, put it back in its enclosure. Remember, patience is the operative word. It's important that you wait for your iguana to settle down before letting go of it, so that it doesn't equate trying to escape with actually being let go. You also want it to know that you won't be intimidated and that you also won't hurt it. You're going to need to repeat this process every day and hold on to your iguana a little longer each time while speaking to it in a reassuring voice. Try petting its head or stroking its dewlap. They really enjoy that. Reward the iguana while holding it with a piece of its favorite food. This may encourage your iguana to look forward to being taken out of its cage. Pet your iguana before picking it up to help calm and reassure it. The next step you'll want to take is to be able to put your iguana down outside of its enclosure. Be sure that you try this in an iguana-proof room where it can't get away. A bathroom with a towel stuffed under the door is a good first choice. Do this a few times until your iguana gets accustomed to being put down in this different environment and picked back up again. Be sure to carefully supervise your iguana when doing so. Remember not to grab its tail if it runs off, or the tail will detach as a defense mechanism. Reward it with treats of its favorite food when it doesn't run off. The more you interact with your little green friend, the more it will begin to develop trust and start to bond with you. Just keep in mind again that this process could take as long as a year to accomplish. You're really going to have to be committed to all the effort required to tame your iguana properly. Your iguana's claws will periodically need to be trimmed. If your iguana is large or fidgety, you may need to have another person assist you. You might even want to wrap your iguana in a towel with just their head and the front or rear legs sticking out for trimming. Like most other pets with nails and claws, you should only trim the very end of the claw. If you clip it too far, you'll cut into the quick inside the nail, which will bleed. If this happens while trimming your iguana's claws, dab the edge of the claw with some styptic powder. Some iguanas will never allow their owners to trim their claws. These feisty lizards will simply have to be taken to the vet to get the trimming done there. Like many reptiles, iguanas shed their skin regularly, especially when they're growing and expanding. In fact, the healthier your iguana is, the more it will shed. Shedding is a good indicator that your iguana's diet is providing proper nutrition and that it has a suitable environment for its well-being. If it's not shedding adequately while growing, then a change in diet or habitat may be required. Consult with your vet to be on the safe side. You can help your iguana with its shedding by misting or spritzing it daily. When you mist or soak your iguana, just be sure to do it early enough in the day so that it can dry off and get its body temperature back up. Also, keep an eye on any skin shedding around the toes. If it isn't flaking off, the dried skin will shrink and constrict blood flow to the toes, which can cause them to die and fall off. So you should carefully remove any shedding skin from the toes when you notice it. Iguanas' tails are designed to break off as a defense mechanism. As a result, their tails can detach due to often avoidable circumstances. For example, whipping their tail against a hard surface, not having enough space to move around properly in their enclosure, improper diet, lack of adequate lighting, taking a fall, being stepped on, or being attacked by another iguana or animal. Of course, grabbing a fleeing iguana by its tail is also a sure way to end up with nothing more than a section of tail in your hand. Fortunately, the tail is usually capable of growing back, depending upon several variables. These include the age, size, and health of the iguana, as well as which section of the tail became detached. If the length of tail that came off is small, your iguana can usually be treated at home and nursed back to health. More severe tail loss will require immediate medical attention from your veterinarian. For minor tail breakage, you'll want to stop any bleeding with the application of some styptic powder or cornstarch. Follow this by cleaning away all the powder using an iodine-based cleaner. Then apply an antibacterial ointment like Neosporin to the end of the tail. Repeat the cleaning until the tail has healed. Sometimes, despite a healthy diet and a well-maintained habitat, your iguana can still become ill. So it's important to be able to recognize the symptoms of some of the more common maladies that can afflict your little green friend. Don't hesitate to take your iguana to the veterinarian anytime you detect symptoms or behavior out of the ordinary. Here are a few of the common signs to watch out for. Change or sudden loss of appetite. A change in attitude. This can mean becoming lethargic, moody, cranky, or aggressive. Change in routine. This can include when and where it basks, shifts in sleeping patterns, soaking excessively, and/or lounging in cold spots. Digging, snout banging, and attempts at escape. A change in skin color, such as darkening or turning brown. You notice that your iguana is eating but not defecating. This could be a problem of constipation or impaction. Frequent runny stools. Opening its mouth and panting. This is the first warning sign that your iguana is too hot. Loss of consciousness. Loss of weight or no weight gain, despite a healthy appetite and diet. If you notice any of these behaviors or signs of illness, you should take your iguana to a qualified vet. They should be able to help you identify the problems and help you understand how to make the necessary changes to help nourish your friend back to health. As you've now seen, green iguanas, which are still wild rainforest creatures, require a lot of very specialized care and maintenance. Owning one is certainly not for everyone. Those who choose to do so and have taken the time to learn all they can about these wonderful reptiles have created a healthy habitat for them in which the proper environmental conditions have been seen to, and are willing to provide the patience, love, and investment of time that's required. Iguanas can be fascinating and rewarding companion animals to share your life with. Good luck, and have many happy years together.